What's going on, everybody? Welcome to Sector for Nerds, and welcome to another episode of Star Wars The Clone Wars Retro Discussions. Today we're going to be talking about Season 2, Episode 17, Bounty Hunters. We don't need their scum. Just kidding, that's not the whole name of the episode, I was just quoting. You get what I'm doing. First up, you guys, I want to give a shout out to Caleb's Cave of Collectibles for being a $5 or above tier member. And you also can become a tier member today by clicking on the link in the description below. You can get your name shouted out, you get bonus content, there's a whole bunch of stuff over there, you guys. Go have a look at it. Link in the description below. I cannot wait to talk with you guys about this episode here today because, you guys, this is my favorite episode of Star Wars The Clone Wars Season 2. That's right, folks. Oh, I can't wait. I love this episode so much. So let's not waste any more time. Let's get into it. This episode was directed by Stuart Lee and written by Carl Ellsworth. The cookie for this episode: courage makes heroes, but trust builds friendship. All right, you guys, it's time for me to bring on the man who this week wants to be referred to as the voice of the voiceless, the advocate, the special counsel, intro guy. Take it away. The death toll rises as the battles intensify and threaten a growing number of Republic worlds. Planets are left to survive on their own, while the Jedi struggle to fight a war on many fronts. A series of medical stations have been established as a lifeline for those in need, but the facilities are easy prey for separatist attacks. After losing contact with the medical station orbiting Felucia, Obi-Wan Kenobi, Anakin Skywalker, and Ahsoka Tano are sent to investigate. At the beginning of this episode as well, they have a tribute to Akira Kurosawa, someone in the industry that George Lucas very much looked up to. Now, getting into the episode, you guys, first of all, Ahsoka is back. I feel like it has been a minute. When was the last time since we saw Ahsoka? Oh my gosh, was it the Lightsaber Lost episode?
Arrest her!
Yeah, oh my gosh, wow. So the last time we saw her was with Tara Sinube, who has, like, unironically become one of my favorite Star Wars characters.
Off she goes, always rushing.
We need more Tara Sinube in Star Wars. And speaking of Tara Sinube, you guys, the actor who voices him, Gregory Baldwin, also plays a role in this episode as well, but we'll talk about that in a little bit. So they go to the medical station by Felucia, but it's not there. You know what is there, though? Some separatist vulture droids. And they crash land on the planet. They start walking around Felucia, and they come across two Rancors, which I always thought was crazy. I'm like, oh my gosh, they just got random Rancors just running around Felucia. My goodness. I'm honestly surprised they didn't show up later in the episode. But Obi-Wan and Anakin argue because they're like, well, we need a plan. And Anakin's like, well, you always taught me to go by instincts, and my instincts are telling me to go that way. And Obi-Wan says, oh, we should go this way. And they're just bickering back and forth with each other. Ahsoka's just sitting there smiling, and she looks off in the distance. She sees some smoke, so she's like, I'm going that way. They end up finding a village, and they're growing healing herbs, which I believe they refer to as Nycilum. That's not the only thing they come across at this village. They look in the barn, and they find a ship. A very cool-looking ship, by the way. And they're sitting there confused because it's like, well, there's nobody around, but yet at the same time, there's crops that are ready to be harvested, tools are laying around, something ain't right. And so Anakin, Ahsoka, they go to look in this one building, they open up a hatch that leads to like an underground tunnel, and they see two people just like trying to sneak around down there, which just epically failed. And Anakin's like, all right, well, mystery solved. And before they have a chance to do anything else, all of a sudden we get four people show up right behind them.
Kindly drop your weapons, Jedi.
Take it easy, Snips. We don't want any trouble.
This group of bounty hunters, oh my gosh. I love these guys so much. One of the big reasons why I love this episode. So starting out, we've got Suki. Excuse me, not Suki. I'm thinking of Avatar: The Last Airbender. Sugi. One letter off. I think she's a female Zabrak, right? Like she's got the thorns on her heads and stuff, right? Isn't she? I think she's a Zabrak. And then we've got Rumi Paramita, who's the sniper, and she only has one line in this whole episode. Here, I'll even say it right now. I'll try to even do it in the voice as well. For Anwan is hardly a fair fight, even for a Jedi. Oh, I'm gonna cringe while editing this video. But by the way, both those characters, Sugi and Paramita, are both voiced by Anna Graves, which is Satine. So cool. She's back. Shout out Anna Graves. Then you've got Embo, who's a freaking badass, and we'll talk more about him later. And then we've got Serapis, who's looks like a Mark I Iron Man droid. Now, Ahsoka's sitting here like, well, wait a minute, you say 4 on 1. You mean 4 on 2. And Serapis looks at him and goes, we don't count you. Obi-Wan walks in the room. Do you count me? That's my freaking guy.
Wait a minute. 4 on 1? You mean 4 on 2?
We don't count you, knee-high.
Do you count me?
I don't feel like I talk too much about Obi-Wan, but Obi-Wan has always been one of my favorite characters in Star Wars. I know Ahsoka's my number 1, but my number 2 is Obi-Wan. Those, oh my gosh, you guys, I love Obi-Wan Kenobi. His comedic timing has no end. They're getting ready to fight. I always wish when I watch this episode, oh, I just want to see this battle go down so bad. But before it has any chance to, someone stops them. His name is Casus. He's the village leader. And he says, can't you see these are Jedi? We are saved. Wait a minute, Casus. You're in league with the bounty hunters.
You're in league with the bounty hunter.
Arrest her.
Arrest her.
Thank you, Terra Sinube. You have changed my life. I'm gonna get you guys all on the Terra Sinube bandwagon by the time we're done with this show. The bandwagon that's been started by yours truly. But Casus, you guys, is voiced by Gregory Baldwin, who I mentioned earlier. And the reason why I found it so significant now is because he sounds so much like Iroh. And for those who don't know, Gregory Baldwin voices Iroh after the original voice actor who plays Iroh ends up passing away from Avatar: The Last Airbender. One of the best animated series ever is Avatar: The Last Airbender. Between that and Clone Wars, man, I love both those shows. But he explains the situation, right? We're being attacked by pirates. If we don't give them a portion of our crop, they'll destroy our homes. He says, look, without our stuff to sell, we have no money for food, fuel, equipment, etc. And Obi-Wan's like, and yet you can afford to pay mercenaries? Which, yeah, good point, Obi-Wan. But he says, look, these bounty hunters, they drive a far more reasonable bargain than the pirates do. We can't fight them. We're farmers. We're not warriors. But even with the bounty hunters' help, I still kind of feared the worst. Now that there's 7 of you, it's okay, here we go. We're gonna get a team up, right? But there's still a little bit tension between the Jedi and the bounty hunters, because they were just about to fight each other. And Obi-Wan's like, look, we just want a ship. And Suki's like, well, you can't have ours. We're busy right now. And Obi-Wan's like, well, unfortunately, we couldn't help even if we wanted to. And even Ahsoka looks at him like, wait a minute, what? All of a sudden, these pirates show up, and it's okay, here we go. What's about to go down here?
State your name and business.
My name is my own business, and my business is taking what's ours.
There is nothing here that's yours, unless you're here to buy it.
Buy it? Ha ha ha!
Kenobi, Skywalker. I can't believe you came all this way to see me.
Hondo.
And all of a sudden, you hear a familiar voice go, buy it? And I'm like, oh, Hondo's back! I smell profit!
I smell profit.
I'll admit, when season 1 first rolled around, first time watching it, I wasn't the biggest Hondo fan, but this episode, you guys, it kind of made me understand, okay, I actually like the Hondo character. It was kind of one of those realization type moments, okay, actually, I do want more of this guy around. This was an episode, you guys, going on a little side tangent, but we're still, talking about the episode. This was an episode that me and a friend of mine, when we were in grade school, my first sleepover that I had with this friend at my house, we watched this episode I want to say at least 6 to 8 times, and it was probably more. The both of us were obsessed with this episode just because of the bounty hunters, because of Hondo, everything with the action scenes and the story, it was so good. So this episode has always stuck with me, and I think that's why I like it so much and why it's my favorite of this season. But Hondo and Obi-Wan, they kind of get into a back and forth with each other. Obi-Wan's like, look, if you're truly interested in friendship, Hondo, then might I suggest you stop threatening farmers? And Hondo just oh, please tell me you have no business with these bounty hunting scum. And he offers to pay them double, right? He's like, well, how much are they paying you? Oh, but it doesn't matter. Whatever it is, I'll double it. You just have to step aside. And then everyone starts raising their guns at each other. We're about to get another action scene, but then it gets called off by Obi-Wan. And he's just like, look, all I want is a ride to the nearest Republic outpost, Hondo, and I am willing to pay you handsomely for it. Twice what you can make selling this crop. But then when he finds out he's offering him Republic credits, he's like, well, my associates don't accept that currency, so no deal. Feels a lot like Watto from Phantom Menace, right? Republic credits are no good for me. I need something more real. So the Jedi go over a plan with the bounty hunters of how they can defend the village. And Anakin's sitting there like, look, man, these bounty hunters aren't going to stand a chance. Suki starts talking trash about him like, oh, you guys are just the peacekeepers who failed to keep the peace. And Obi-Wan has this interesting line that I feel like is kind of just glossed over for the rest of the episode because this episode isn't really about the Clone War. But he does say, the rift in the galaxy isn't our fault. If more worlds would stand up to themselves against the Separatists, this war would have been over long ago. Which I think is an interesting point of view from Obi-Wan, right? If the other planets were willing to, do something against the Separatists, there would be more... It wouldn't just have to be about the clones fighting. However, you also got to consider as well, there's probably a lot of planets as well that want to be aligned with the Separatists, that disagree with everything that the Republic is doing. But during this scene as well, we're introduced to another one of the villagers. His name is Delani. And he is very much against... He's very much Negative Nancy in this episode, right? He's like, how can 4 bounty hunters defend us against so many? And then when Anakin brings up the idea of training the villagers to defend themselves, he's like, but we're just farmers. Why are we paying bounty hunters to defend us if we're just going to end up doing it ourselves? Which, I guess he's got a fair point, but also I think the more hands that you got helping, the better. The more the merrier, as I'd say. By the way, this episode is very much... The Mandalorian tried to replicate this episode. You remember the episode where with Mando and Cara Dune, they trained a bunch of villagers? That was very much like a replica of this episode. Only in my eyes, I think this was done better. But I can also, to that point, see where people would say oh, it's just a filler episode. And first of all, I feel like I say it all the time, but I feel like people have overused the word filler so much that to me, it means nothing anymore. And we're getting more from Hondo, who ends up being a crucial part of the Clone Wars as well. And we're introduced to all these cool bounty hunters, and they, eventually have bigger roles as the show goes on. Well, some of them do anyway. This to me isn't filler, is what I'm trying to get out of this. And if this is your definition of filler, then I guess this is my favorite filler. Man, I love all of the moments, not just the fights themselves, but everything that led up to it as well. First you've got Anakin training the villagers, and he's like, all right, everyone, form up. And he realizes, all right, crap, I'm not dealing with the 501st anymore. Divide into rows of 5? These guys have no idea what they're doing. And then we get a conversation between Obi-Wan and Suki, where he's like, well, what happens if you need the Bon as a fallback position? And he kind of worries that Sugi is more concerned about the Silum than she is the villagers. Which I assume is her payment, right? That's probably what they promised her. Which, yeah, I guess if it is one of the most valuable crops in the galaxy, that Nisilum, then yeah, I guess it would make sense for them to get paid in it. They could probably sell it, make a good amount of money, right? But I like the idea of Obi-Wan just being like, well, the thought had crossed my mind. And Suki fires back with... And by the way, they're both kind of smiling at each other this whole time, too. Anyone else shipping Obi-Wan and Suki? I didn't realize how many times I shipped Obi-Wan with somebody in this season. I was like, oh yeah, there could be something here. There could be something with Luminara. It felt like Obi-Wan was just kind of hitting on everyone this season. Or they were hitting on him. But Sugi's like, so in your mind, I'm just like any other pirate.
So, in your mind, I'm just like any other pirate.
Am I wrong?
Not entirely.
Obi-Wan's like, am I wrong? She responds with, not entirely, but it is easier to protect my prophet, I mean the Silum, and the villagers, if they're both in the same place. And she kind of gets on Obi-Wan, look, you can suggest anything you want, but I'm gonna do this. I know what I'm doing. I'm gonna keep these people safe my way. Good conversation, guys. And then we get Ahsoka saving Serapis, who is the Mark I Iron Man looking thing, only to find out that inside of it is just a small little creature, and I don't know the name of it, but it was very funny.
Serapis! It's too heavy!
Don't look. I'm having a suit malfunction.
You don't have to look tough to be tough.
I thank you for your help.
Anakin was training the villagers, and Delani starts to get into an argument again. And he complains that, look, every time that you waste teaching us to twirl these poles is time that you could have spent beating the pirates yourself. And Obi-Wan walks in and is like, okay, but what good would that do you? Like, more people are eventually going to come along and try to take your crop. Or would you rather just give away part of it every harvest season? And he just kind of like melts down and is like, if you make us do this, there isn't going to be another harvest season. And he walks off. They do kind of zone in on Obi-Wan's face after he walks away. And I think in a way he did kind of understand where Delani was coming from. Because in a way, the Jedi are asking these people to, like, put their lives on the line and potentially die, you know? Now, I will say, Sugi, what an eye, my girl. You, like, the way that she just looked over and immediately saw the reflection of the scouts' binoculars. Because I feel like usually when stuff like that happens, like, everyone's just so oblivious to it. But the fact that she noticed him, like, oh, cool, all right, let's go get him. But she's not the one to go and get him. My man Embo is. And this dude just runs at the pirate with his head down and his hat up. His hat's made of some kind of metal. You would have thought it was like vibranium or something, right? Like, you shoot that thing, it's just like bolts are just bouncing off the hat. Oh, this dude's so cool. Pirate charges at him. Embo grabs him in a chokehold, gets him in the sleeper, snaps his neck. Made quick work of him. But Obi-Wan brings up the good point, right? Well, when this scout fails to report to Hondo, he'll be coming soon. And Hondo is like, all right, well, you know what I always say. Speak softly and drive a big tank. I just knew, like, oh, it's going down. And then we get to the real, like, meat and potatoes of this episode, and that's, like, the big battle scene between the villagers, the bounty hunters, and the Jedi versus the pirates. Embo's just, like, jumping up on speeders while people are still on them, and he's shooting other people that are on other speeders. I'm like, this dude's the man. At one point, he is on a speeder, jumps off of it, launches his metal hat, and it knocks off two of the pirates riding on a speeder. It was so cool. Embo is legit one of my favorite bounty hunters, and this episode is like the main reason why. But then Hondo brings in the big guns.
Embo!
Embo, can you hear me? You'll be all right. We'll get you inside.
I'm just glad he didn't die. But if he did die, what a run that dude had. And then before Hondo can cause any more damage, Anakin jumps up to the top of the platform that Hondo and his tank are on, and he starts attacking Hondo. Hondo's got a freaking Magna Guard staff. Where he would have gotten that, I don't know. But I will give Hondo credit. He is taking on the Chosen One right now, and he is holding his own. Albeit that Hawaiian monkey lizard that he's got. It's not the same one from Season 1, because the one from Season 1 is red. This one's blue. But he's sitting there, like, driving the thing. He does end up killing the female sniper. I remember the first time watching this, like, I thought she just got knocked out or something. But then I remember, like, later on I realized, oh, wait, no, like, she actually died. This freaking Hawaiian monkey lizard is just, like, turning the tank back and forth as Anakin's trying to, like, hold his balance, trying to fight Hondo. And then the lizard jumps out from the cockpit and starts attacking Anakin. I'm like, this little thing, cut it up, Anakin. I do like that Delani is the one to save Obi-Wan, because eventually it gets to a point, right, where it's pretty much just Sugi and Obi-Wan holding their own. By the way, you guys, Sugi, I actually noticed this a while back, too, that her blaster is the same blaster as Boba Fett's. It's an EE3. The pirates are going to shoot Obi-Wan, but then Delani comes in behind with his staff and, you know, throws it at them.
Welcome back, Delani. Are you all right?
Fine.
Anakin's gonna cut up the lizard. I'm like, yes, Anakin. And then Hondo jumps in and stops it from happening. I'm like, darn it, Hondo. But then Hondo ends up getting defeated by Anakin. He's hanging off the cliff. Poor Anakin, man. He had the high ground and he just didn't know how to utilize it. Because Hondo goes, I think this is, I feel like I always remember this being my brother's favorite part of the episode, where Hondo's like, Skywalker, let me call off my men. And then he gets up and he just pushes Anakin. He just walked in the room right now. This scene's always funny.
Skywalker, let me call off my men.
Anakin ends up jumping off the platform and Hondo's like, "This event is no longer profitable."
This effort is no longer profitable!
I guess the Jedi won the day, but I guess in a way the damage was kind of done. As Serapis said, there's crops to harvest, we gotta rebuild our huts, like, let's go get to work. But crucially, he also says, for the first time in my memory, my people don't have to be afraid. Which I think was cool, right? Like, that was kind of the whole idea of the episode, is the fact that the Jedi and even the bounty hunters were able to show these people, like, we can stand up and we can fight against anybody that comes our way. We can't let other people push us around. What a freaking episode, you guys. This one is so much fun. I'm honestly very curious to see what you guys think of this episode in the comments below. I absolutely adore this episode. But yeah, you guys, that's gonna wrap us up for this week. There isn't gonna be a new episode next week, you guys, but in 2 weeks' time, we will be talking about the episode titled The Zillo Beast. Got some more really good episodes coming up. Now, for those who are subscribed to my $10 tier, you'll have access to that episode next week, but it just means that for my $10 tier members, you're not gonna get any, like, early content today, because technically there's none next week. So you guys will have to wait a week, everyone else wait 2 weeks. Life getting kind of crazy at the time of this recording, so just kind of, bear with me for this one, you guys. Thank you for your understanding. Thank you guys so much for watching. Be sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, share this video with others to help support the channel, and I will see you guys next time.